Welcome to Professor Game Podcast, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who brings the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration that help us in the process of getting the students to learn what we teach. And I'm Rob Alvarez. I teach and work at IE Business School in Madrid, where we create interactive and engaging learning materials. Want to know more? Go to professorgame.com/subscribe, start on our email list, and ask me anything. Engagers, welcome to another episode of the Professor Game Podcast. And today we have Amany, or Amany. I'm not sure if I got that one, and my pronunciation is not certainly nowhere near perfect, but did I get that kind of right? And most importantly, are you prepared to engage?
Yes, I'm ready to go.
So I'm guessing that my pronunciation was bad, but not terrible. So okay. Amany Annaggar, you'll be able to find that. If you want to find this episode, you can spell it out very easily. It's Amany, and you'll put it in the search bar, and you'll find it in professorgame.com. She is a researcher at Humboldt Universität zu Berlin. My German is definitely terrible as well, but you get the idea that it's the Humboldt University of Berlin. And she's in the chemistry education department and the founder as well of Sci2Play. Her Ph.D. research is about gamification and serious game as assessment tools of problem-solving competence in the chemistry education. So super, super interesting. Besides her Ph.D. research as well, she has worked as a tutor and lab assistant at the university, the Humboldt Universität zu Berlin, and on 2 EU projects in science education, which are Inspiring Science Education and Ark of Inquiry. She is also now preparing for her PhD defense. Almost ready. I know last time we spoke, you were just about to get past that and her defense. And she's also, of course, working on Sci2Play, her business idea, and to start it officially very, very soon. Or maybe it's already there. Where are we on that, Amany?
Actually, I'm still working on the idea to publish it soon.
Nice.
So it's not officially done.
I'm sure we will have updates on that once
yes.
we find Amany as well on her Twitter, on her LinkedIn. We'll be talking about all those things so that we can find her there and have those very interesting conversations. But Amany, we always like to get started with these interviews knowing a little bit more. You know, we have the formal introduction. We know all the sort of important, very important things. But you also like to know, well, right now we are in crazy and weird times of coronavirus. But what does, a regular day, besides maybe coronavirus or during coronavirus or whatever we want to go for, what does it look like for you? What's your agenda? What's your schedule usually composed of?
Well, I am also mother of 3 kids in 3 different age groups. So it's fast impossible to have a stable routine or typical day, especially during this special time and we all at home. So to achieve my goals, I am always busy and my day is quite diverse. So normally I wake up early, finish any tasks related to my kids and prepare them and start my work. And my work really depends on my week plan, so where I am trying to achieve the week objectives by the end of the week, even if it will drive me to work during the weekend. So generally, I am trying to make a balance between my research, my business, and my family, and try to give the priority to the urgent one. So sometimes I'm working on my research, sometimes I'm working on my business idea and to learn business, sometimes I'm mentoring juniors, sometimes I'm joining online courses, webinars, workshops, participating some e-learning design tools. And this beside the initiative that I'm working on to establish live workshops in Arabic to help educators to use the successful tools in their online classes, especially these days. And it reached to run some online teachers training in different Arabic countries. And this training includes the basics of the instructional design, how to design a lesson using a successful, easy to use e-learning tool, or how to make it engaging. And yeah, it's really interesting to work with different cultures, with different modes of learning, since here in Europe, for example, especially in Germany, the mode of learning here is hierarchical collaborative, but in Egypt or in most of the Arabic countries is hierarchical individual. So it was really interesting to know the learning modes in each school and to work with different cultures. So I am quite busy with this initiative, but yeah, it's working well.
I've heard, and as well where I'm teaching, i.e. business school and university, we have a very, very, very international audience. And we can see, I had in my last, for example, the Masters in Management when I taught there, I had people from India, I had people from China, from Japan, but then, of course, I had people from the Middle East as well. I had people from Africa, I had people from North Africa. I had a lot of people as well from Europe. I had people from Latin America, and I had people from North America and all around, North Europe, Central Europe, etc., etc. So I've seen, live, like different ways of seeing things culturally. I don't know if the way of learning is different, or rather what we are culturally told learning should be about. Because one very interesting thing that I've been observing in general, of course, this is a very broad generalization. Every individual is unique and very different. But having, again, a broad generalization, I've seen that when you move a bit more like from, sort of from Europe into the East, the further you go to the East, the more that you were mentioning about the more individual sort of learning that you have to learn by yourself, and the teacher is there or the professor is there to bounce that, information into your head, rather than, that sort of collaborative case studies and that kind of thing. It's kind of more difficult to get that through. I don't know if that's related to your experience as well.
Yes, it is, because even when I'm talking with the teachers, the way they teach is really shocked me, because here in Germany, what I did in my study, what I do with my children is totally different. So I try to explain them what's the difference between collaborative and individual, and it's good to work in groups and to motivate students to work together and so, but no idea about this, and they are totally focused on the individuals. So it was really interesting to me to interact with them and to understand their cultures. But also there are many schools in Egypt, international schools, and also in Qatar and Kuwait, yes. So there are some teachers who told me, no, we are working with as a hierarchical collaborative, and we engage students to work together, and we evaluate projects from groups, not from individuals. So there are kind of multicultural in Egypt.
Very interesting, very good. But Amany, we want to shift a little bit, or Amy, if you allow me to say that, because you mentioned that in Germany they call you Amy as well, right?
Yes, sometimes Amany, sometimes Amy, so, but it's the correct one is Amany.
Amany, okay. So Amany, we would like to make a little bit of a shift and talk about one of those times when you had one of those, what we like to call the fail moments, or those first attempts in learning. So a time when you set out to do something, it didn't go, the way you expected. There was some sort of failure, and, what did you learn from it? And, or, how did you get out of that situation? We want to be there in that story with you. We want to live it and, of course, learn with you from that circumstance.
Yeah, it's really interesting and important question, because anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new, right? So my favorite failure was when I chose my PhD mission, and I call it mission because it was a mission. So my master thesis was about using e-learning tool to foster problem-solving competence in science education. And from this point, and because of my intrinsic motivation to design a scientific game with the same level of fun like the other games, I chose to work on gamification in science education. So I started to read about the topic. I discussed it with my supervisor, Professor Rüdiger Thiemann, who mentored me and motivated me to go forward. And when we agreed on the topic and the objective of the research, he asked me, well, Amany, you have to choose the suitable tool that you have to use during your research. Actually, I found some tools, but these tools are not what I'm looking for. So my idea is to gamify a content from chemistry curriculum here in Berlin, and to try to assess problem-solving competence using this tool. And I didn't find this tool. So I contacted some companies from different countries, some freelancers to do it for me, but they were too expensive. Besides, every freelance told me that he can do it only for example, he can do one thing, animation, backend, or graphic design, just one thing. And they told me that's impossible to find one person with these awful options. From this point, I decided to do it myself
Wow.
and to be this person with full options and to turn my impossible mission to a successful possible mission. Yeah, and this was my favorite mistake, where my objective was not smart enough because it was not realistic. You have to imagine that I am with a scientific background, starting with my bachelor, where I studied physics and chemistry, then my diploma in education technology, then my master in chemistry education. I never saw or tried or to write or saw any code or to design anything from scratch. But my professor, my supervisor, Professor Timon, believes in me, and he gave me all support and the freedom to develop the tool that I was dreaming up. He supported me along this journey with all needed materials, mentoring, and was flexible and gave me the option to change the idea if I failed. So I took more than 1.5 years to know what are the different engines, how to design a game, how to combine all theories that I would like to implement in my game, which gamification elements I have to use, and how to develop it using Unity, Adobe Fuse, Blender, and by the end, how to collect the data and to export it, and how to analyze this data from the game. It was a huge effort and totally new field for me. Everything was new for me. But also my husband helped me too much in the development phase, as he is a postdoctor in experimental physics. He is not a developer, but he learned development. And he was always in my back when I am trying to escape or to give up. To be honest, it came to my mind many times to change the topic. I cried too much from the depression when my attempts failed or a bug appeared and I don't know from where came this problem or what's going on here. So I was really crying because I can't understand what's going on.
Welcome to computer science, right?
Yes, it was really frustrating and I was very depressed, where a small problem could take days and days without enough sleeping from me and my husband to explore the problem. And I didn't plan for such experience, to be honest. But when I returned back to my start point and to my objective and remember that I'm working on a gamification project to motivate students to do something that they didn't like to do, so it motivates me to do something I didn't like to do. So you have to imagine how valuable this learning experience to me. So I believe my mistake was the unexpected learning experience, which also taught me the value for each minute in my day.
That is great. I think more than a mistake, it was a very difficult experience, I'm sure. I don't know if it was a mistake or even a fail. I mean, maybe at some points you had those, as you were mentioning, I think you used the word depression, but I'm guessing you had these periods of very deep sadness because you didn't know what to do. You had a lot of anxiety probably as well because of all the difficulties that you were going through, which I'm sure were in some way devastating as well. So I think those were basically lows that you went through, and you came out. It seems like you came out, or you are coming out still in a successful way. And in that sense, we would like to shift, of course, from those difficult, those heartbreaking times as well, and those difficult moments into a time when you set out to do something to solve this huge challenge, and it actually ended up in success. So it can even be the continuation of what we're talking about now, or maybe the happy story of something related to that. But we want to be there with you. We want to live that happiness as well, and the success of what you accomplished.
I have two different challenges. The first is boosting my business, and I'm working on it. The second was also the biggest challenge during my research in chemistry education, where problem solving is a crucial cross-curricular skill. Whereas the more difficult and complex the problem, the more time required by pupils to understand it, right?
Of course.
And to understand and to assess the students' understanding of this really complex concept or construct, teachers need more time and more items to assess this competence, and therefore pupils need more time to solve it. So sometimes it reached 2-3 hours booklet tests to assess one competence in chemistry. So in turn, it led demotivation of students during the test over time. So the big challenge here was to design and develop an assessment tool that can successfully assess the problem-solving competence in chemistry education, and at the same time can motivate the unmotivated students. So it was a really big challenge. And at the same period of this challenging, and I am thinking how to solve this problem. My son was 6 years old and he was playing a video game with his Nintendo for hours and hours and just for have fun. So from this point, I said, okay, we can think to use such elements and this game thinking to make this experience and to assess the students' skills, especially games have some characteristics and some elements that could help students to be motivated and engaged, and we can collect data from the game. So the solution that I came up with, and I told the story of this mission, was a 3D adventure video game. It's called Alchemist. And it was gamification elements also, like avatar, points level, competition, fighting, and many others. And we implemented the problem-solving model, the competence model, with the 4 different phases of the competence model. And we implemented a virtual lab that allows students to carry out experiments and to try to solve some given problems in the virtual lab. And we also implement some assessment questions like multiple choice questions, problem-solving questions with 3 levels of understanding, open-ended questions, all in this game. And the content was from chemistry education from Berlin curriculum. And the lesson was acid bases and pH. And when I tested the game, I surprised how the students interacted with it. They were laughing, screaming, collaborating to solve some tasks. And also the feedback came from teachers who asked me to bring the other classes to test this game. So it was really challenging task, and it was successful to implement the competence model using the game thinking to assess the problem-solving competence. And the results of the research was really positive and validate the game that I designed as assessment tool of problem solving in chemistry.
Wow. I almost ran out of air myself when listening to all of these things, and again, the whole, chemistry assessment, just that whole thing, just even naming it is so complex and so, so difficult to get through. So I'm sure it was a massive and very interesting challenge. And again, from both success and failure, you've been doing very, very interesting, very deep things in the education and gamification and using game thinking in this game. And I'm guessing, throughout this time, or maybe it's been refining, maybe it's still in the process, or you took it from somebody else as well, could be, or you made it up by yourself, some sort of process, some sort of way of doing this thing, like a series of steps or something similar. If you were to approach a new project, instead of sci to play, let's say you went for, I don't know, or science, you went for, biology, or you went for, linguistics or something else. If you were to confront a new project, do you have what would be the steps? How would you face this new challenge?
I will define the main objective of the project. It should be smart objective, not like my version. And I have to make a user analysis, player analysis, analyze anything what I want the learners to learn, which behavior I would like to change, which skills I would like to improve. And then I have to choose a story that fits with the concept or the lesson that I would like to gamify. And in the scientific projects, especially in the science classrooms, I'm keen to follow the competence model with the different phases of the problem solving or the design thinking, while the students has to understand and characterizing the problem and simplify the given problem. And he has to build a mental model for this problem. So this is the second step. After he understanding the problem, the students in front of me has to explain and represent the problem, and he has to represent the information on a diagram or a photo or whatever he has in front of him. He has to explain it for me to make sure that he understands the problem, and then give him the opportunity to solve the problem. So I always start my lessons with a question. So why we have to do that? What's the meaning of that? So I am giving the clients or the students the option to think with me and to gamify the process as a problem-solving process. And then we have to make sure that they are understanding what we said by the end. And I always say that we have to give points depend on the students' understanding of the concept. So there are 3 levels of understanding. And we can give points for the behavior. So if we said we have now an experiment and you have to follow this schema, for example, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can expect that student can jump from 1 to 3 or from 1 to 4 or just solve the problem without any reading or anything. So just he is trying to solve the problem. So I always say we have to evaluate his behavior during the lab work or during the lesson. So this is my plan when I'm saying I can make a gamification project or Yeah, apply game thinking to a situation.
So you have those steps of understanding what your objectives are. You're looking at, of course, the players is what I'm gathering from what you were mentioning. Then you have sort of a design thinking phase where you're thinking through sort of what you're going to, well, before, of course, what are the educational objectives you want to achieve as well. And then sort of designing through with your students, what are the things to achieve, letting them, be part of showing what the problem is. And then, of course, evaluating or grading them with these points or, evaluating their game through these points, depending on the different things that you can have. And one of them is, of course, the behavior in itself. Is that correct?
Yes, and also when I talk with the teacher, I'm asking him which data you need. So what would you like to export from this system or from this game or from this class? What you would like to see by the end of this class? So it's one of the objectives, but I put it by the end. So I have to make sure by the end of this lesson we have to see 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's also one of my criteria.
Fantastic. Just a quick break before we continue. Are you enjoying this podcast? If you're listening through a podcasting app, please subscribe and rate us on the app. This will be of great help to reach more engagers so we can change the world together through gamification. What would you say, with your experience, would you say that there is something that is very important to always include when doing gamification, maybe a best practice or one of those things that if you included them, at least you can improve the quality of your project, the quality maybe of the engagement of your students? Do you have such a thing?
I would to say a SMART mission for gamification is essential. SMART mean specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time related. And to keep iterating, gamification is an iterative process. So great design is iteration of good design. So this is my concept. Great design is iteration of good design.
Fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. Iteration, I think, is a step that we should never almost avoid if we are trying to design something. And by design, I've said it many times, my mother is a graphic designer. I am a terrible drawer. So by no means I'm saying that design means you being able to draw or to make sculptures or to make things that are visually necessarily beautiful. Design is a very, very ample thing. But when you're designing, you're thinking about the person who's going to be using or enjoying of whatever it is that you're doing. So again, I agree with you that gamification is a design discipline and that you have to think, of designing it for someone. And of course, you're going to commit mistakes. You're going to learn from them and you have to hence iterate just like scientists do when they have these hypotheses and scientists think we're going to go this way. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. But then you try again and you start delving deeper into whatever it is that you're trying to demonstrate, right?
Exactly.
So the science mind, I love it. And after, listening to this, I know you've heard a couple of episodes as well. Is there somebody that comes to your mind, somebody that you would like to listen to in an episode like this one, and Professor Game, another guest for the podcast?
Yeah, I would like to hear Professor Dr. Hamari from Tampere University and Dr. Lobna Hassan also from the same group. She is postdoctoral researcher and she made her research in storification and educational Harry Potter and virtual reality. So it's a really interesting topic. And I hope I can hear one of them.
Fantastic. So Yuho Hamari, is that correct?
Yes.
And the other one, I didn't catch the name.
Lobna Hassan. Dr. Lobna Hassan.
Lobna Hassan. Okay, I'll look for them, and if not, I'll send you an email to get the writing correct for that second one. I know of Yuho already. So also in that sense of recommendations, is there a book that you would recommend an audience like this one, like The Engager? So people who are interested in gamification, maybe mainly in education, maybe not. Is there something that you would recommend for direct inspiration on gamification or related or not related topics?
Yes. I always recommend the books from Dr. Karl Kapp, The Gamification of Learning and Instruction. He has 2 books. The first one is Game-Based Methods and Strategies, and the second one is Field Book. He has some ideas and practice, and I always recommend these books for the beginners in science education who would like to learn more about gamification. And also I recommend his blog and his writing online because he is really expert in e-learning and gamification. So I learned too much from him. And I follow him, and starting from my master thesis, I learned too much from his books and his writing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can also recommend people to listen to episode 25 of the podcast, where we had Professor Carl Kapp as well. So that's definitely something so it was a great interview as well. And he talks about many of the things that we've been talking about today. And of course, he mentions his books. You will also find some reference to his books in such an episode as well. So that would be a great book to recommend. I completely agree with you. And now recommending, instead of, looking at other people, we would like to take a look at Amany now. What would you say is your superpower, your sweet spot, that thing that you maybe do, you feel you excel at? That's something that you do great. So yes, it is a time for bragging a little bit on this one.
I guess my superpower is that I'm multitasking and persistence to achieve the desired goal, no matter how challenging it is.
I think that I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to say my hypothesis here. I think that your multitasking comes, among other things, of course, from having 3 kids on such different age groups, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's one of the sources. So if you want to be even better at multitasking, one of the things that you can do is have those 3 children as well in different age groups. So you can train your brain to do all of these fantastic things. And Amany, we would like to know as well, of course, we're always talking about gamification and games, but what would you say is your favorite game? And you cannot say side to play or any of the things that you designed yourself. That would be a little bit of cheating, which you can say that as well, but give us another one.
Actually, I'm not a gamer, but I played Silk Road for a while. And now I'm playing all kinds of video games and card games with my kids, like Elfenland or Geister, Schatzsuchmeister. I think the translation is like Ghost Fighting Treasure Hunters, something like that in English. And this helps me too much to understand the different perspectives in different games. So I'm trying to play with them, different games, to learn from these games.
You're doing research as any good scientist, for sure. That is great. That is absolutely great, Amany. And if we still have a little bit more of time to finish up on the interview, and we will make the random question that we make every now and then. And this question, again, on the surface seems very, very simple, but it might lead us into very interesting places. And it has to do with this person is asking, and I'm going to quote here, which is your favorite example of gamification? So take it away.
My example is Alchemist, what I did. Not because I did it, but because I combined many theories together. I followed the self-determination theory. I combined the problem-solving model. I implemented gamification elements. I followed the game design model with 5 different phases, starting with analysis, designing, development, quality assurance, implementation, and evaluation. So I think I believe in my idea, and I would like to say it's my favorite gamification example. I would like
a little bit or a lot of confidence is always something very, very good to have, and it will definitely make us a lot more curious to find out. So where can we find something somewhere to take a look at that, or to have a sneak peek into what that project looks like?
I published a preprint paper online, and now I'm working to write a clean code for the game, because when I designed and developed the game, I was beginner and I have a lot of bugs inside, and it wasn't good enough. So now I am taking online course to learn how to code very well. And so I'm now modifying the game design a little bit, just to write a clean code, and a little bit in the graphic design, and I will publish it soon.
Fantastic. I'm guessing that we will be able to find that in sci2play.org. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
So www.sci2play.org, all in one word, the Sci2Play. I spelled it out because it can be a bit tricky, because it's a very smart way of saying science and playing. I love it. I love that name. So Amany, thank you very much for investing this time today and talking about your projects. And we were sort of digging deep into your brain and your experience today, and which is something I hope you enjoyed also along with us. Is there any final piece of advice you want to leave us with before you let us know, of course, where we can find you, where we can find out more about you, your project, where we can engage with you, and then we'll say it's game over.
Yeah, I am on Twitter, Amany Annaggar, and also on LinkedIn. And you can find me on my website, sci2play.org as well.
Perfect. Those are very good places where we can find you. So thank you very much once again for this time, for being together with us, with the engagers. However, for now, and at least for today, it is time to say that it's game over. Engagers, it is fantastic to have you here, and I hope you enjoyed this interview with Amany. Are you using Instagram? Once again, I've been working throughout this for some time, and now I'm posting stories. I'm posting on my feed as well, and I'd like to get your feedback on how I'm doing, who are other people that I might follow, what are some interesting things that we could do through Instagram. And if you want to follow that journey, if you want to be with me and see what you can suggest, we can even chat through the private or the public stories here. Just like on Twitter, you can find me as Rob Alvarez B. And of course, before you go on to your next mission, you were thinking that we were already running out of medical stories in gamification. Well, we are not. We're definitely going to have somebody else next week. And if you want to know who that is, all you have to do is subscribe using your favorite podcast app and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.